First of all, I think Demetrius did himself a lot of harm by not fighting for the last, not really being consistently fighting in the ring the last, 4 or 5 years. I think 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been a different fight. Um, what is he, 35, 36, somewhere in there?
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that he did himself a disservice by not being active. It doesn't mean being in the gym. It means being in an actual fight where you actually have to compete against somebody on that level. As far as David is concerned, David, when he was about 16 years old, he was in my gym and he sparred. I think said this to you before. He sparred with Gennady, and out of the 20, 25 guys that I had up there in Big Bear sparring with Gennady, he was probably the best sparring partner we ever had up there. So
He's
we
at
knew back then
16.
at 16 years old.
Oh my God.
Obviously, Gennady, with all the other sparring partners, never really was abusive. He took care of his sparring partners. He let them work. He worked himself. But David, not only was he aggressive, but he had some things that Gennady had to figure out at 16. Obviously, the experience was a lot better, a lot more for Gennady, but David is steadily improved. And I think as a coach, that's what you look for in a fighter. You look in a young fighter. It doesn't matter the age, just fight by fight. He seems to be getting better and better and better. He fought the perfect fight in this fight for me.
Okay, so I want to touch on just your analysis overall of how the fight played out, but I got, just a fan of me, I got to know. Tell me about those sparring matches with David and Gennady at the gym.
Oh, they sparred probably 3 or 4 times. It was maybe 5 or 6 rounds, but it wasn't something where they were going out at each other. Gennady recognized that this was a young man, 100. I think at the time he was like 189, 80, 190 pounds. A baby, you could see he was a baby again, but he was throwing punches like a man. He was in the ring just like a grown man and a very seasoned sparring partner. He didn't have that many amateur fights, but his learning came in the gym. I've heard stories of him sparring at the wild card with the Nigerian young man that was a champion.
Oh, Latif.
Latif, yeah,
Yeah,
and they had
Coyote.
wars. And Latif doesn't take it easy on anybody. So if David was able to hang in there with him, you know that he had something in his tank. With Gennady, Gennady had to work. Obviously, not trying to hurt him or not trying to do anything damaging to him, but he had to work to get the sparring from him, to get good sparring from him. And David made him work.
Wow, man, to be a fly in the wall during those sessions. Wait,
You could
curious.
see the
Yeah.
talent back then.
Yeah.
You know,
Was that because David always mentions learning so much sparring with Gennady, but also he mentions sparring Bivol. Did that happen at the summit?
no, I've never had Bivol in my gym.
Okay. Because he brings that up as he says, "Hey, I know how well I did against Bivol. That's why I want to fight him." He has a lot of confidence in that, but we'll get to how he matches up at 175 with Bivol and Beterbiev. But overall, were you surprised how quickly David was able to beat an opponent like Andrade?
No, like I said, it's 5 years too late. And David has been improving. At the beginning of David's career, one thing that I really disliked about his style is that he hung on the ropes too much. He just had his back against the ropes and was countering instead of using his great ability to manhandle and to control the action and to do things on his terms. In this fight, like I said, to me, he fought the perfect fight. That's the kind of fight that I would love to see David fight anybody. It doesn't matter at 68, 168.
Mm. So what went wrong outside of the inactivity for Demetrius Andrade? Because he started out in the first round strong. He was throwing a lot more than we've ever seen him. He was throwing 4, 5, 6 punch combinations. I was like, wow, is he taking a page out of Pacquiao's book? I wasn't used to seeing an Andrade that active.
No, I liked how he started. I really liked how he started. He wanted to really take it to David and was looking towards winning the fight. But a bigger man, a naturally bigger man. Demetrius was a 154-pound champion, 160-pound champion. So he's a little guy. He's not the big guy. And I think David's size and David's speed, and does he throw a lot of punches? I think that made the difference. And eventually he was going to wear Demetrius down, as did Canelo did to Charlo. Get towards the end of the fight. Just Charlo was a little more able to survive, but there was no way that David wasn't going to get him out of there from the fourth round on. When he hit him with that right hand and he hurt him and he dropped him, I think it was just a matter of time. I'm happy that it got stopped when it did, because it would have been just too much to take if they let the fight go on for Demetrius.
Yeah, there was a part of me though thinking that Demetrius would would box and move, box and turn, like we saw him do at the lighter weights at 54 and 60. I know, when you have an opponent like David, you really got to earn your respect so that he doesn't, just run all over you. That ended up happening, but were you surprised he didn't take that approach, the boxing and moving approach?
No, it's difficult when you got a guy that his reach is probably 3 or 4 inches longer than yours. He's got speed just like you do. He's got power just like you do, except at a different weight. It's difficult to stay on the outside. It would have been more difficult for Demetrius, I think, on the outside. David would have picked him apart. He tried to do it on the inside, tried to stay close, try to muffle the shots, but David is David is very adept at fighting the style that he needs to fight to dominate.
Hey, so he's just outgunned in every single area.
Yeah, yeah. He was just too big a man.
Well, they said he weighed in at 190 pounds at Andrade. You as a coach, what do you think about that? A guy, fighting at 168, weighing at 190 to be able to, to handle that weight of an opponent.
Andrade weighed 190 pounds.
Yeah. There was an article that Mike Coppinger wrote for ESPN where Victor Conte told him that Andrade would be weighing 190 the night of the fight.
I doubt that very much. I doubt it. Andrade, in my opinion, probably gained 10 pounds. He didn't look that big. His body didn't look that much bigger than it did at 60. You would have been able to tell.
Was there anything that you saw with your trainer, Abel, that you feel that David could have done a little bit better, or that's something that he needs to improve on a little bit more?
Wow. Like I said, for me, he fought the perfect fight against that particular opponent. I think that, no, actually, I don't see anything that, until I get him back in the gym, and if it was me training him, and until we'll go over the tape, I haven't seen it since, then we could say we're going to work on this particular thing or that particular thing. But no, to me, he fought the perfect fight against that opponent. A different opponent would have been a different way to fight.
You've had a heck of a lot of fighters, most notably Gennady Golovkin, who was a boxer puncher, but just relentless pressure. Explain to those watching that don't really know how it is to deal with a pressure fighter, like how difficult it was for someone like Andre to be able to deal like that with that type of pressure and that type of size and that type of power.
I think that once David started landing some shots and Andre knew that he could be hurt, it wasn't so much the punches as it was with Gennady. Whenever we fought with Gennady, it's the presence. They're on you. They won't get off of you. They're right there in front of you. And the presence just makes you, I'm not going to say nervous, but it makes you twitch. It makes you react. It makes you do things that you normally would not do. And once he established his ground, David, then just his presence was enough to allow him to land his punches, because Demetrius didn't know what was coming, as it was with Gennady. I remember in Gennady's fights, whenever I saw him land the first meaningful punch, all I had to do was look at the opponent's eyes, and you could see that, oh no, I got to put up with this for 12 rounds. That kind of look. And I think that David's presence in this fight was perfect. He was right in front, right there, popping his jab. Another thing he did very well is he threw punches from a lot of different angles and a lot of different levels. Get back to that question that you asked. I would have liked to have seen him when he had Demetrius hurt. I would have liked to have seen him, like in the fourth after he dropped him, to land more punches to the shoulders and to the arms. He was missing some shots on top. They weren't landing clean. And I think that he needs to, in my opinion, work a little more on making sure that he doesn't miss. He's too devastating with his punches to be missing as many as he was.
Yeah, I like that little looping punch.
Yeah,
that's what people said online. Like, hey, he's throwing it like how Gennady used to throw it.
Yeah, Gennady showcased it in the Rubio fight, but he always did that in the gym. So I'm sure David experienced that in the gym, and I don't know if it was in his mind, but it was something maybe that he practiced and it landed. It was effective.
Yeah, and the other one too was the right hook that he was catching Andrade with, I believe in the fourth and fifth rounds.
He dropped him with that shot. Yeah.
And it's weird because it hit him in the nose. It didn't even hit him in the chin. Like Andrade was covered up, but it hit him right there on the nose.
Yeah. Oscar De La Hoya used to throw a shot called the 45 that he called the 45, like it's a 45-degree angle. Against a southpaw, that's a great shot, especially if they're dipping over to that side. And it doesn't matter where you land it. If you throw it with the kind of velocity and the kind of speed that David was throwing him, and a good fighter would throw him. If it lands anywhere, it's going to have its effect. It just lucky for David and unlucky for Demetrius. It landed right in the right spot, and it was able to drop him.
Yeah, you know, I've seen Canelo throw an uppercut from that angle that catches, you know, dipping southpaws, and I noticed like, hey, that's another one that's effective. But yeah, looking at it, I was like, wow, he's really effective with that punch. I would imagine, Abel, overall, what you give him an A for this performance?
For this one, yes. It hasn't been very many that I've been able to say, wow, you know, been really, really surprised on how he fought the fight. This was perfect for me.
How much weight would you give this win for David in comparison to the other wins? You know, most notably his Caleb Plant win. But in comparison, would you say this one holds more weight because of the type of opponent Demetrius was?
I think Demetrius is the most accomplished fighter that he's fought. Maybe a little too late. Caleb was a good fighter, but not really as accomplished as Demetrius. And I think Demetrius fought the kind of fight that he thought he had to fight. It just David is improving so rapidly in this fight, especially for me, as did Terrence too. Terrence, you know, Terrence had a great fight in his last fight. So hopefully they continue to do this. And if he does, it's going to be difficult to beat David.
Yeah. Yeah. Was this performance a performance that books him a Canelo fight, or Canelo and Eddie look at it and be like, let's wait a little bit. He has too much momentum right now.
Nah, Canelo's not even that's not even a blip on his radar, or Eddie's. He's a good fighter, but you got to remember Canelo's beaten everybody that they put in front of him devastatingly. John Ryder had, you know, they fought him in his own hometown, so I'm sure that the kind of pressure for fighting in your own hometown and having all these responsibilities took away from his focus. But I think that David went a little closer to earning it for me. I know a lot of fans are saying he needs to fight him, he's ducking him, No, Canelo's in the driver's seat, man. This is the first fight where David, in my opinion, has proved to the public that he belongs in a Canelo fight. The fights before that, he did not. To me, the fights before that, he was lazy. Yes, he was winning, but he was lazy. He wasn't finishing like he finished this one. I read a quote by Archie Moore a couple months ago. It says, in order to be a great fighter, you got to be a great finisher. David was a great finisher on Saturday night. He wasn't before.
Yeah, some guys, though, you just can't finish, Abel. You know that, right?
No, everybody can be finished. Everybody can be finished.
Not if they're like holding you and holding you and holding you.
He wasn't holding them.
True,
Caleb Plant wasn't holding him.
There's a lot of holding in the later part of that fight.
Yeah, but you have to be able to, if you're going to become a great fighter, you have to be able to deal with that and dispatch everybody, as Gennady did. People held Gennady too, you know, when he was in his heyday. You know, the same thing. People held George Foreman. People held, Lennox Lewis. In order to become a great fighter, I think that you have to find a way to impose your will on whomever is in front of you. You can be a good fighter and a good champion, but to be a great fighter, as he's promoting himself to be, which I think he is, and deserving of a fight against who I consider number one pound for pound fighter in the world right now, that he's going to have to prove that just like that in every fight. And I said this to him, though. I said this to him 5-6 fights ago. I said, just stop talking, man. Just go out and prove it. Just go out and get in the ring. I said this to his dad, too. Go out and get in the ring and destroy everybody in front of you. Then they can't run from you if you think they're running, because you're doing what you need to do, as Canelo is with his. Yeah.
So we ran a poll on our channel, about 49,000 votes so far. And we asked people, if you had to bet $100 on who will win between Canelo and Benavidez, who would you bet on? 65% at this point have said Canelo, with 35% saying Benavidez. What do you think about that, Abel? Do you think Canelo is still the favorite?
I think that's how I see it still.
Wow.
Yeah, one fight's not gonna make you. One fight, just because you won a lot of fights doesn't mean that you're gonna be able to compete against the best in the world. He did what he needed to do in this one against a 35-year-old man that hadn't fought consistently in how long. He did what he had to do. As Terrence, now, as I said about Terrence, now Terrence needs to do that again with another marquee name. Now we're talking. Where the guy that you're talking about, Canelo, he's done it against everybody they put in front of him. Right? So, I mean, there's been guys in their prime. There hasn't been guys that were old.
So why do you favor Canelo over Benavidez? Where a lot of people say, hey, David's too big, too strong, too much volume, too much pressure. He's going to just wear down Canelo over 12 rounds.
Because I don't think he can wear down Canelo. It'd be Vol, the best fighter in the world right now, technically. Couldn't wear down Canelo. Yes, he beat him, but just a bigger man. David, if he does it one more time, then I'll be more of a believer. But I think that poll that you just read to me is exactly how a lot of people see it. Canelo still experience, big fight experience, big fight performances, all those things come into play, I think, in their matchup.
Okay. In the court of public opinion, though, many feel that Canelo needs to fight David next because of this win. But we're hearing that potentially we could see Canelo and Munguia in May, and then we hope a Benavidez fight in September. Is it better for Canelo to fight David now, or you know, I just feel the longer he waits, the better David's going to get. Like, why not take care of him now?
You know, that's the book that if you go back and watch the Floyd Mayweather and Canelo fight, Floyd took him when he was young, when he was inexperienced, which is smart on Floyd's part. Yeah, you know, yes and no. It's not about what the public thinks. It's about what Canelo thinks. Canelo's a young man. What is he, 34, 35 still?
Somewhere around there, 33,
yeah.
34, yeah.
Yeah. So he's still a young man. He's had a lot of fights, but he's still a young man. So he still has a lot of miles on his odometer. I think it just the public wants to see it, but it's not necessarily something that's. It can let it brew a little bit more, and maybe it'll be a bigger fight in September of next year.
I just feel like out of all potential opponents, like Benavidez, it's like a no brainer. That's the biggest fight for him to make.
Yeah, it'd be bigger in September. If David comes out and does something in May, like he did in this fight against a name opponent. Let's just say he fights the other Charlo. Okay, and he destroys that Charlo. Now we're talking.
True.
Now we're talking.
True. Yeah. No, I could see that scenario where, yeah.
Because there's two reasons. If he destroys this Charlo and Canelo couldn't destroy the smaller Charlo, maybe maybe it won't be a 65-35, maybe a 50-50, you know?
And that's just another fight for David to get sharp, to get more experience.
If he can fight the same kind of fight he just fought, oh my gosh.
Okay, let me ask you this then. If he fought the same type of fight that he fought on Saturday against Canelo, what happens?
He does the same thing to Charlo.
No. I mean to Canelo.
Oh, to Canelo? Still Canelo.
Wow.
Yeah, still Canelo. One fight doesn't, you know, he had a great night against I don't want to be disrespectful to Demetrius, but he fought a great fight against a guy that was there to be beat like that.
On the flip, though, you feel that this David is going to beat Jamal handedly if they do fight?
I think so. I think it's 3 or 4 more rounds in Demetrius' fight, but I think that this David is too much for Jamal, especially since Jamal hasn't fought either. But they're going to compare Jamal and Jamel and say that guy did knock the smaller one out, and this guy does. Now we're talking about now you can sell it, in my opinion. Not that you can't sell it now, but I mean now you can sell it for real.
Yeah, no, well, it's huge now, but I do see how it does become bigger with another fight for David in the next 6 months where he looks spectacular, and you know, if Canelo does fight to Munguia, that's an exciting fight, but I just feel that Munguia has a lot of defensive problems that someone like Canelo is going to pick him apart.
You know, I said in the past that Munguia wasn't ready for the big leagues. A year ago, 9 months ago, I said this. I thought that he wasn't improving. But the fact that he's over there at the wild card with Freddie, he's going to be a much better fighter. I would just like to see him get a fight under his belt with Freddie first before he fights Canelo. But I think he gives Canelo a hard time because he's a durable guy. But being with Freddie is going to be a better fight than it would have been a year ago. I think Freddie's going to bring out some of the things that he needs to bring out experience-wise. And not only that, Freddie's got 5 or 6, or maybe 4 or 5 sparring partners over there at the wild card that are different kind of styles and different sizes that are going to really, really help Jaime Munguia to prepare for the next fight, with whomever it is.
Yeah, but how much improvement can you make in like 3-4 months? You know, it's
listen, when you're around greatness, when you're around guys that know how to train and know how to motivate and know how to get the best out of you, it's there. Nobody's brought it out. It's there in Munguia. It's there because he proved that against Derevchenko with a limited, I'm not going to say training camp, but with a limited learning curve. He was able to beat a Derevchenko, which is a very, very good fighter too. But being around greatness, like I said, Freddie and the guys that he's got in the gym right now, I think that he does much, much better. And he
Yeah,
improves a lot.
you know, once you get a new boxer, obviously you want to. How many fights does it take where you feel like you guys are like running at optimum cohesion?
I think it takes at least 2, 3. I would like the third one to be the one that makes a difference. But I think that you've seen it in football and basketball. A player, a so-so player, goes to another team and all of a sudden becomes a superstar. The same guy becomes a superstar. It's how you approach the fighter, how you talk to the fighter, how you prepare the fighter, how you teach the fighter, how you make the fighter feel that what he's doing is correct. All those things, mental things and physical things, make a big difference in the development of a fighter. It happens in football, it happens in basketball, it happens in a lot of sports. This move to Freddie, I thought, and I said this to when they first did it in another interview, I thought was the best thing that could happen to Jaime. Because I think now we're going to see what improvement he can make. Chavez Jr. didn't stick around because Chavez had all these crazy ideas of how to train. Listen, this Freddie Roach has got a Hall of Fame career. You don't listen to this man. What the hell are you doing there? But if Jaime listens to him, I'm telling you, he's going to be better.
Mm, mm. Yeah, but when they're throwing that $20 million payday,
Yeah.
you're gonna
It's hard
skip
to
those
turn
other
down.
fights. Yeah,
Hard to turn down. You're right.
it is. On the card also, we saw Jermall Charlo returning after 2.5 years to take on David's big brother, excuse me, Jose Benavidez Jr. How did Jermall look to you?
I thought that was the perfect fight for Jermall. After that much layoff, after that much head problems that he had and issues that he had, that was a perfect fight because he fought a guy. If you'd have knocked somebody out in the first round, it does him no good, in my opinion. That was perfect that he had somebody in front of him that was making him work, that was making him think, that was hitting him with some shots. There was no way Jose Benavidez was going to beat Jermall Charlo. I don't care if Jermall Charlo hadn't fought in 5 years. Jermall is a good fighter, has a lot of talent, and Jose's a little guy. Again, Jermall, to me, fought the kind of fight that he needed to get the rust out, got hit with a couple of shots, felt the punches again with small gloves, and Jose really wasn't a threat. The only threat that he was that he had to keep his eyes open. He had to be thinking, but perfect for Jermall.
Did you see? He looked good to me for being that much time out of the ring. Like he said he felt a little rusty, but like to me, like on the outside looking in, I felt like, hey, he doesn't look like he has any rust there.
Well, what he didn't do in the fight, if there was any rust, what he didn't do, in my opinion, is be a killer. In other words, be a guy that's going to be aggressive and go out, because there was a little rust there. There was a little hesitation, but it was best. That was the best thing that he could have done, because what it did was allow him to go 10 rounds, 10 hard rounds. He knows he can go 10 hard rounds against a guy that's right in front of him, throwing punches, wasn't backing down. Jose fought a great fight, but Jose came up short because he's one, not as talented, and two, he's a little smaller.
Mm, mm. So in Europe, well, who knows? He missed weight. It was first it was at 160, and then they changed it to 163, and then he didn't make weight, and they weighed in at 166 for the fight. I would think it's obvious he has to go to 168 if he had trouble
No.
making weight, but
no, I don't think so. I think that
think so?
no, I don't think so. This is a non-title fight. There's really no pressure. He's the star. They're not going to take him off the card. What I didn't like, I'm going to tell you what I didn't like. I didn't like that Jose Benavidez Sr. allowed that fight to be next to David's.
Why?
And because you got, in order for him to, David's a superstar, so maybe he didn't need his father or the coach in the dressing room. But I believe that David deserved that time in the dressing room with his coach to get ready for his encounter himself. So there was that, they had to rush out of the corner and then right back in. So there was nobody, the guy that was warming him up in the dressing room was not his coach. You know, you can't be talking to your fighter and saying the things that you want done. And because when you go to war like that with a coach and a fighter, you really have to be in sync. And Jose Senior's in the ring with his other son. But I'm sure that Charlo would have objected to being relegated to the third fight instead of the second fight. But that part, I always liked to have one fight in between if I was going to have another fighter on the card, at least one fight in between anyway.
Yeah, you would imagine that that can be kind of stressful. Immediately having to rush in there and everything like that. But I guess that's why you have a team. You know, you have people to help you to do all that.
Yeah, you have a team, but there's only one guy that's in your head, and there's only one guy that should be in your head, and that's your coach.
Oh, it's his dad. I would imagine he can hear his dad in his head.
Yeah, but in the dressing room, when you're wrapping hands, when you're hitting mitts, when you're doing the things that you've always done, I always believe that you have to. The dressing room has to be a carbon copy of the gym. How you give them water, how you give them instructions, how everything that you do in the gym has to be a carbon copy of how you do it in the fight. There should not be a change. It should not be a change. In this particular case, it was a change, and that I didn't particularly like.
Let me ask you.
For
Let me ask
Davis
you this,
change.
Abel. Let me ask you this. You said it has to be a carbon copy of the gym. So, and I kind of you had this famous rule at your gym: no womans,
Yeah.
no women. But it was meant for distraction. But what if I was a fighter and I told you, hey, having my lady around makes me calm down. It makes me relax. It makes me not stress.
It wouldn't have been
And
in my gym.
really,
Absolutely.
what if it just on fight night, just like, oh, I just
You
need her
wouldn't.
there. Just relax. It just relaxes me.
Fight night is a little bit different. I'm
Okay.
talking about the gym
Yeah.
preparation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear a woman or a gopher that fighters keep around and say, "Oh, you hit him with that shot. You hurt him. You hurt him." I don't want to hear that shit. You know, we're working, man. We're working. This is not the fight. This is actually work. And when you're preparing, I think all those things that fighter has to be focused on what the coach is telling them. So to have the presence of hangers on or gophers or a woman in the gym is not non-productive in my opinion.
But in locker room, it's cool.
In the locker room, I think that to a point she could be there, but it's not really like lovey-dovey. I want to hang on you and
No,
I'm
of
gonna,
course
yeah,
not.
and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but listen, they're at war together.
Yeah.
These two people live together. These two people are destined for a future, 40 years or whatever. So they're both struggling for the same things. But I think that woman has to understand that ferocity and that meanness and that everything she can't take away. Just like having your children. When you have your children around you or your grandchildren, you're a different person. You're not as mean. You're not as boisterous. You're not as apt to cuss at somebody when you get pissed off, and that's a good sign. That's that sign that it's a pent up energy that I want released inside the ring.
Mm. So Jamal has a few options here. He can go down to 160, attempt to unify belts to become undisputed like his brother against Janibek and the other champions there. Or he has the money fights, the Canelo fight, the Benavidez fight. For you, what do you like the most, Abel? And what's I guess the less of the least potent poison out of all those options?
Well, there's other middleweights, but they're not middleweights like Jamal or like Golovkin or like Canelo used to be. They're not names. They're nobodies that I shouldn't say nobodies. They're fighters that nobody knows. They may have great records and they may have great amateur experience, but nobody knows. You can't sell them. So, in my opinion, the fights that I would love to see in May would be Benavidez fighting Charlo, and then the winner fights Canelo. And Canelo fighting Munguia if he wants in May. That's okay with me. But I think that not only will Charlo prove that he belongs on that level, or David will prove that I'm a bad man no matter who's in front of me.
What's the
So
lesser of two evils for Jamal? Abel, Canelo, or David?
I think that he does better against Canelo than he does against David.
And why is
Just
that?
because he'll box him and he'll stay away. Canelo's not going to press him like that. He's going to pick him apart like he did his brother. Where David's going to go right. If David does what he did in this last fight, David's going to go right after him and try to get him out there and prove a point.
Yeah.
Styles make fights, they say, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. Like the punch volume between David and Canelo is there's a big contrast there. David throws a lot of freaking punches, man.
Against who?
Against everybody.
No, against Demetruis Andrade, who hadn't fought in how long?
No,
Against Caleb Plant. What did Canelo do to Caleb Plant?
True, but then you just said styles make fights. Even
Yeah,
Canelo said,
what did Canelo do to who was the last guy he fought before? Callum Smith or Callum
no,
somebody?
Ryder.
Ryder. Okay, and
Yeah.
before that?
Bivol.
Okay, Bivol. He lost against, arguably, in my opinion, one of the most technically sound fighters. But unfortunately for him, nobody wants to see him fight.